Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble and Jaw Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you're a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Got me second perfect tipping round of the weekend last weekend. Let's hope we can go for the third for 2024. Let's get stuck into round 6. Round 6 of the 2024 NRLW season starts Saturday, 11 AM from Cbus Super Stadium with the game of the round. The Gold Coast Titans host the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. And this is kind of jaw-dropping. The Titans are the favourites at $1.69, whereas the Sharks are $2.17 outsiders. That is insane value already. I think the bookies have got that wrong as well, just quietly. But in any event, for the team list news for the Gold Coast Titans, Sienna Lefipo will play 5'8", as Talia Fuima-Ono has been suspended for a high shot. Meanwhile, for the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, it's the same 1-17. However, Tali Holmes, who was stretched off a couple of weeks ago against Newcastle Knights, has been named on the reserves list. So that's a very, very bright welcome addition for sure, no matter if you're a fan of the Sharks or not. This is a blockbuster. This is enormous. The Sharks have their first trip to Queensland for 2024. The Titans, they rectified things last weekend with ultimately a dominant performance, but the Roosters didn't offer much, and we'll get into the Roosters a little bit later, but the Roosters did not offer anything. So the Titans just took advantage. They're obviously a dangerous enough side to take advantage and make teams pay. But this Cronulla Sharks outfit, I think, is just a lot more physical. They're a lot more skillful than the Titans, or maybe just as equally as skillful. But this Sharks outfit is a different kettle of fish. And last weekend, Emma Tonegado absolutely turned it on against the St. George Illawarra Dragons. And I think the Sharks, they'll want to make, they've already made a statement, but they'll want to make a statement that they can travel to Queensland and get the dub against the last year's beaten grand finalists. So I'm going to go Cronulla Sharks 1-12. The second game on Saturday in the NRLW is from CommBank Stadium, kicking off 12:45. It's Parramatta versus the St. George Illawarra Dragons, and the Eels come into the game as $1.41 favourites. The Dragons are $2.92 outsiders. The Eels, they got brought back down to earth against the back-to-back premiers last weekend, and I can't help but feel that that 40-minute delay where the Paramedics were not on site at Eric Tweedale Stadium had to do something about their mental state of mind. They would have been ready and raring to go, and then for them just to cool off in the sheds for 40 minutes, I think that would have been a massive contributing factor, because they did at times get within touching distance, or at arm's length at the very least, of the Newcastle Knights. They fought hard to get some points on the board, but ultimately they did lose 13 plus to a Knights side that know all about pressure, know how to win games off the top of their head. For the St. George Illawarra Dragons, it never felt like that they were in the game against the Sharkies last weekend, and they are quite possibly the most injury-ravaged team in the NRLW at the moment this year. So there is that excuse, but I'm sure that they don't want to use that as one. However, for the Dragons, Bobby Law comes back into the fold, playing at centre after she received a gash a couple of weeks ago. And Casey Ray, predominantly a hooker, will play in 5'8", and Zali Hopkins, who has been playing 5'8" this year in for Tyler King, she will be the hooker this weekend. So Coach Jamie Soward just tinkering a little bit here and there. Whereas the Parramatta Eels, there's only the one change for them. Lindsay Tui, a second row centre body, will come in on the interchange bench, and I think that was for Brianna Eels. I must apologise, I'm not sure there, but it is Miss Lindsay Tui that comes in on the interchange bench. I've got to say the Parramatta Eels will have learnt a lot about that loss last weekend. They would have been embarrassed as it was their first ever game at the new venue. And I think, with paramedics immediately and readily available, I think they'll come out firing, and I think they'll be too powerful, and I think they'll be too revved up. They're going to win this game 13+. Now moving into the Sunday games, and match number 1 kicks off at midday. Knights versus Tigers. Newcastle, they are $1.10. Wests, they are $7. And for the Newcastle Knights, Evie Jones remains at halfback, but Jessie Southwell has been named on the reserves list. There is one other change in there, and that is Grace Kukutai has been named to play in 17, whereas Vienna Tenau has been named on the reserves list. Meanwhile, for the West Tigers, Rakea Horn is out due to a concussion. Therefore, Cheyenne McGlone will be playing centre this weekend, and it's not a bad replacement. McGlone was a pretty good try scorer for the Burleigh Bears in the BMD Premiership this season, so it is a handy replacement. And then I want to just give a shout out to Salma Noah. I think that she had a slow start to the season, but I think she's become quite good for the West Tigers over the past few weeks in particular. I really like the work that she's doing. And Montana Clifford had a great debut, at least in the first half anyway. The West Tigers, this West Tigers outfit, they're tough, bro, but again, they've been nipped in the butt by injuries, and they are a young team as well, so they stick solid. There's something here that Breckin Morley can work with, or is working with. Being up at halftime against Brisbane last weekend, Brisbane obviously weren't all that crash hot in the first half, but they weren't awful. So West Tigers can take a lot of confidence out of that first half, but that second half, unfortunately, was just, it was nightmare stuff. Unfortunately, Tigers fans, I've got to tip the Newcastle Knights here, and I think they can do it. I want to say 13+, but this Tigers outfit, don't know. I'll say Newcastle 1-12. I think this will be a tougher game. I don't think they'll allow themselves the Tigers, to lose by that margin again, sorta. So I'll go Newcastle 1-12. From Totally Workwear Stadium, kicking off at 1:45, Brisbane Broncos versus the North Queensland Cowboys for the second time in NRLW history. Brisbane, they enter the game as $1.39 favourites. North Queensland are $3 outsiders. Very nice odds indeed there if you're on the North Queensland Cowboys side this weekend. In regards to team lists, Brisbane, they have a couple of changes, but their 1 through to 13 is unchanged. And their interchange reads Brill, Lafayette, Gould, and Aneta Claudia Nuasala returns to NRLW first grade after she put one on the jaw of Kennedy Charrington in round number 1. For the North Queensland Cowboys, they also have changes, primarily in the forward pack off the interchange bench, but their 1 to 7 is unchanged. Harada Butler has been named to start with jersey 10 on her back, and the interchange reads Faifua, Peacock, and this time around, Sarika Muka and Shania Power, with Francesca Goldthorpe being nominated as 18th player for the Cowboys. Shout out to Mackenzie Wheel, however. She announced on her Instagram page that her season is done. She did suffer a concussion, maybe 2, against the Canberra Raiders last weekend after she only just returned after copping a severe head knock against the Cronulla Sharks in round number 1. So it's seriously unfortunate. She made her Origin debut this year, and I reckon that Jillaroos jersey is just around the corner for Miss Mackenzie Wheels. So best of luck, and hope it's not too long of an off season for Miss Mackenzie Wheel. It was not a hot start for the Brisbane Broncos last weekend against the West Tigers at Leichhardt Oval, but their start to the second half very much was. They scored 30-odd, 40-odd unanswered points in that second half after being down at halftime against the Tigers. So there is a little bit to work here for the North Queensland Cowboys. Sorry to take that biased approach, but just in games throughout this year, Broncos, they seem to just have 10-minute patches, maybe 15-minute patches, where they just leave the gate unlocked for teams to maybe re-enter into the game. And Broncos, it was shocking, their first 2 weeks. Not because just they played shocking sort of thing, but I had them as a grand finalist at the start of the season, and this past month has been huge. They've made enormous strides to be up in second position on the ladder after 5 rounds. And after their first 2 weeks, it didn't look like it was going to be the case. So credit to them. And they've gotten a burst of energy because of this Stacey Waka. Absolutely incredible athlete is Miss Waka. And I saw her in person a couple of weeks ago when the Broncos put the sword to the Titans. And whilst Waka is an incredible winger, there's no doubt that Julia Robinson is the winger of the competition right now, and she might be the heart and soul of this team as well. She's having an unbelievable campaign in 2024. So the Cowboys have definitely got their work cut out for them this weekend. Vitalita Nakore, however, returned to the fold last weekend and made a huge impact for the North Queensland Cowboys. She was enormous. She still had a few rugby attacking brain snaps that hopefully is out of her game. She got it out of her system last weekend, but the energy that she brings was fantastic. On the other side of the wing for the North Queensland Cowboys is Libby Sura, this young Queensland Under-19s representative. I've always been a fan of her work, and while missed tackles are an issue in her game at the moment, admittedly, she's just working really, really tough, and she's working beautifully with Jasmine Peters on the outside there. So this battle of the wings, look, the Cowboys, they got their work cut out for them this Sunday, admittedly, but they're in good form. They're in good form, the North Queensland Cowboys. And then the centre battle of Hufanga and Shazolka versus Whitfield and Peters. That is so good. That's worth the price of admission alone, just quietly. And it will be Peters versus Hufanga. And Peters did a fantastic job on shutting down Jamie Chapman a couple of weeks ago. Hufanga is now coming up against her. And then conversely is Shazolka versus Jakai Whitfield as well. That's going to be a cracking one-on-one matchup as well. Crystal Blackwell, I think if you have been a follower of mine for a good solid year now, you would know that I think Crystal Blackwell has done a magnificent effort to keep her head above water after being ping-ponged into different positions for the better part of 12 months now. But she had a super solid campaign in the BMD Premiership. I think she was the best fullback in the competition, and last weekend we really saw her elevate herself into the NRLW level. We've seen her do it in spits and spurts throughout the past 12 months, but it came as no surprise, no shock at how good Crystal Blackwell can go when she really showed herself last weekend. And then the battle of the halves, Gail Broughton and Ali Brigginshaw, my goodness, they are going good, and Broughton has hit the ground running after missing the first fortnight or so of the competition. Tallulah Tillett and Kira Dibb, I still think that as a combo there's still work for improvement, but Tallulah Tillett I think is a little bit underestimated, a little bit underrated so far in 2024. Couple of try assists last weekend at crucial stages, and that's just been part of her game all this year. So I like what they're doing. Just need to be a little bit more crisp, I guess. And in the forward pack, Brianna Clark, Lenarduzzi and Ferguson versus Harden, Manselman and Butler. That's a very equal battle. The back row, Rapana, Teitzel and Joseph versus Palata, Rafstrand Smith and Bree Chester. And that's going to be huge for China Palata. Tasman Rapana is going to be coming at her all day. And I think Ali Brigginshaw as well will be trying to help Tasman Rapana break the line that China Palata is defending in that portion of the line anyway. But Tiana Rafstrand Smith equals that out because TRS is having an outstanding season so far. Definitely in the conversation for best second rower of 2024. And that's not me being biased. I think Miss Tiana Rafstrand-Smith has been brilliant, and she's going one-on-one with Romy Teitzel, the workhorse. And then Keely Joseph and Bree Chester, two of the more impressive up-and-coming locks in the NRLW, coming head-to-head. And then the interchange is pretty much even as well. Destiny Brill versus Faifua. And then the rest of that interchange forward pack battle does speak for itself when reading it. I think this could be a hell of a game. I think this could be a much closer game than anticipated. I do think that backline is deadly as for the Brisbane Broncos, but I think I'm pretty confident in saying that we might have the better forward pack rotation for the North Queensland Cowboys, but I think it all evens itself out to what should be a cracking contest. I cannot wait to see this game. I'll be in attendance, so come say g'day if you're out and about, but come on you Cowboys, you're going to win this one 1-12. Just weather that storm, that initial storm of the Brisbane Broncos, and you'll be right. You'll be right, Cowboys. Number 6 emanates from Allianz Stadium from 6:30 p.m. Easts versus the Raiders, and it is the Roosters who are the favourites at $1.25, whereas the Canberra Raiders are $4 outsiders. Outs for the Sydney Roosters, Jamie Frizzard and Maya Hill-Moana are out. Therefore, we've got Tani Navidi, Jasmine Strange, Isabel Kelly, and Maya Wood filling in the centre and wing positions. And then coming in off the interchange bench is Eliza Lopamawa. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And then into the Canberra Raiders lineup, and they welcome back a couple of new faces, they welcome back a couple of faces. Mainly, they've got their halfback Ash Quinlan coming in, and also Shakaya Tangai also coming back onto the wing, which does push out Alana Dilmit out of the side, and so too debutant Wiruki Hosea from last weekend. This has been a really weird season for the Raiders. I do feel sorry for them, but unfortunately I think that was their worst performance of the season last weekend, taking nothing away from the Cowboys, but I do think that was the Raiders' worst performance of the season. But it was the Roosters' worst performance of the season last weekend, bar none. There was a stage there where I think it was early on in the second half, maybe late in the first half, but in any event, completion rates at over a quarter of the game were sitting at 37% for the Sydney Roosters. It was awful. They came up ill-disciplined, and it's not like they didn't want to be there, but maybe the heat got to them. They just got way too easily frustrated. And I guess if there is a team, other than the Titans last week, if there is a team that can get under the skin and knock them off their game, it's the Raiders. And I know they've only won the one game this year, but if the Raiders can get under their skin and stick tough to this superstar side, I think there's an upset in the offing here. But I don't think that the caliber of players they've got in this team, the Roosters, will lose 2 in a row. They'll be bitterly disappointed after last weekend's effort, but I don't think they're going to have it all their way. But I am tipping the Sydney Roosters 1-12, but there's a sniff about the Raiders this weekend. Howdy, thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for the support. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Go you Cowboys.